we're back on. Okay, so you've just given us a really wonderful example of how if one were to simply make assumptions about someone and not actually interrogate the facts, you might go off on a completely unhelpful tangent or get stuck very much in the biomedical realm, which we know is only one aspect of caring for patients. I think I just want to emphasize to students something that you said about, I don't want them to think that we are expecting them to manage this whole process. We are expecting them to allow the door to be opened in order to identify the problem and then refer on to someone who has got the expertise. So we're not expecting the students to be able to do what you are doing. We're just wanting them to enable that disclosure so that they can refer on.
So I'm going to give a model. I'm going to give them a model, which I always give, to be able to bring comfort, because you're picking up on the anxiety already that you anticipate, Siobhan, that they're going to be feeling, and then they shut down completely, right? I'm going to I do this with my students all the time, segue out. And there is, I don't know when they're going to be receiving this information.
It will be in the first 3 weeks of August.
Oh, okay. Okay. So I can always give to them the recordings. So I belong to an organization called South African Medical Legal Association because I am a sexual health expert in assessing personal injury and medical negligence. And my role is to be able to do an assessment of the damages to sexual health and relationships caused by the medical negligence and or by the personal injury a person has suffered. And we hold webinars throughout the year as well. And because of COVID-19, we've been holding webinars on trauma, triage for doctors, for healthcare providers specifically, because we understand and recognize that who is the person that becomes a doctor? It's somebody who's got an A-type personality, somebody who's quite perfectionistic, somebody who likes to feel in control, somebody who likes to feel very well informed. And we know that COVID-19, because we did a poll, actually, we did a survey to find out from doctors how comfortable and confident are they feeling working in COVID-19. And as you would imagine, the results came back, which said we don't feel confident because we don't feel equipped with the knowledge. So we've kind of been giving these webinars to be able to give support and information to doctors. So why I'm saying that is that I recognize that when a doctor is taken out of a comfort zone and put into an area like sexual medicine, sexual health, it feels uncomfortable and there will be a shutting down that happens to you. One of the reasons is because perhaps for you as a medical student, you're not comfortable yet with your own sexuality. You know, you're young, you're 21, you're 22, and I always quote to them some research that shows that medical students have got a much later sexual debut than your art students, for example, social science students, because they're spending so much time studying in their teen years to be able to get into medicine. And then once they're in medicine, with the demands of the work, it's very hard to kind of find time to be social and sexual. So we know that this is an uncomfortable situation for students to be in. And I just urge you just to stay. So let me come back to the model that I was talking about, so that there isn't anxiety around expectation of what you have to be doing here. The model is called the PLICIT model. P stands for permission. LI stands for limited information. And T stands for therapy, intensive therapy. That's a PLICIT model. Specific information, specific, PLICIT, permission, limited information, and then specific and therapy, whatever. Yeah. So all I want for them to do is to start with the permission. That's it. And the way that you give permission is by you beginning a conversation, initiating sexual health into your history take. And the moment that you do that, your patient is going to want to talk to you about that. That's your role. It's uncomfortable. you're a doctor, because one of the issues, and this is based on research as well, that is always raised, is that there is a cultural imperative. I can't talk to somebody who's much older than me around sexuality, it's disrespectful. Or I am a Black student, I can't talk to a white patient about this, or the other way around. Or this person's, somebody that, because of my religion, I feel uncomfortable about doing that, or I feel ill-informed, and whatever. Those are, we've got evidence-based research to show that globally, that's how people feel, doctors feel, which is why they avoid it.
Yeah.
So we, I'm resonating. I have compassion with you around it, that this is a difficult thing for you to do. At the same time, when they've done research on patients, what they have found is that patients long for that information.
Yeah.
It's imperative that they will, and they're not asking their doctors. And what I do is I always draw a face on the board, because this is based on research, and also actually on trauma, because with trauma, as we know, as we're looking at each other, we look at each other's eyes to be able to establish safety with each other, our eyes. So for you as a doctor, your patient's going to look at you in the face. And if you look sideways, when the patient says, hey, doc, I've had this prostatectomy, and, is it going to work? And the doctor looks away and says, well, I cleared out all the cancer. You're fine. That patient is just going to stop right there and then and not know, get no information, get no education, and walk away, and will probably end up depressed or divorced or infidelity or something, and end up with a doctor who's going to give them an antidepressant, because they don't have that core piece of knowledge which the doctor has around what happens after a prostatectomy to erections and to ejaculation.
Yep.
That is the responsibility of the doctor to be able to tell the patient. If the doctor can look at the patient in the face and say, thank you for asking, this is what you can expect. And if you want more information, I'm going to refer you to material, to resources, or to somebody to go and talk to them about it. That is your responsibility to be able to do for your patient. That's it. You don't have to go into more than permission and limited information. The SS is specific suggestions and then intensive therapy. You don't have to do that. The other thing that you really do need to do as a medical student is to be able to know anatomy. And this is, surprising, and they kind of giggle. And I always have to put up a drawing of a vulva, even though they're in gynecology and obstetrics, and the vaginas that they're looking at are probably pregnant women, or, women who have some kind of pathology. You must be familiar, because your patients are not familiar with their own anatomy, with their internal anatomy and their external anatomy. It's absolutely vital for men as well as for women. Men must know where their prostate is. Women have to understand, when you do a hysterectomy, what the womb looks like. Because I will get clients who come to me, I had a hysterectomy, like, what kind of hysterectomy? I don't know. Well, do you still have a cervix? Do you still have an ovary or ovaries? What do you have? I don't know. Now, that's vitally important, because that's going to impact on their sexuality and their sexual health. So they have a right to know that. So you need to know not only the internal, but the external, the vulva. You need to know that. I always tell the women students, women identified, take a mirror, go home, do a genital self-examination, so that you feel confident and courageous to be able to answer questions and to explain to women what is going on with them. Another big, okay, let's kind of move into the sexual medicine part of it. I think there's an understanding that we need to be doing a real thorough biopsychosocial relationship and a pharmacological assessment. But let's move directly into the sexual medicine part of it. So the 4 systems that impact on sexual functioning. Well, I have a slide that kind of has the word sex in the middle. And from that, there's a bidirectional relationship of everything you can think of. Family, trauma, early sexual experiences that you've had, information you've got from peers, religion, culture, your parental relationship, your medical history, your own health. All of these factors are going to deeply impact on sexuality, and sexuality is going to deeply impact on every single factor, like stress, whatever. It's going to deeply impact on your work, your productivity, your concentration, your ability to be intimate, your ability to connect. So we have a bi-directional relationship with all of them. So whatever the doctor is going to do to that patient is going to directly impact on sexuality, either just in the moment, like have an acquired sexual dysfunction, or will be long lasting. But they have to know that it's going to be impacting on sexuality. So the 4 systems that directly impact on sexuality are going to be your neurological system, in terms of your nerves sending down the messages, your hormonal system, which I've kind of covered, we'll come back to that, as well as your vascular system, because we need to have good blood flow to be able to have sexual health, and then the psychological system. And what's so interesting is that the psychological system, which is what all the medical students say, oh no, can't do that, don't want to know about that. The relational part of the psychological system, and there's been great research on this, has way more impact than any of the other biological factors. So in other words, if you've got a relationship that is really safe, secure, pleasurable, happy, supportive, you will be able to be sexual and overcome illnesses, medications, by just having psychological well-being, specifically relational well-being. So it's so important to understand the psychological impact. And we know, and I always ask the students, what are the 2 medications that are most prescribed in the Western world? And they are antidepressants and reflux medication, gastric. Why? Because of
stress. Yeah,
exactly right. So what you're going to do, you're going to prescribe or tell them to go and get some Nexium when they come in with like gastric reflux all the time. Go and get some Nexium. No. You have to go a little deeper. So those are the 4 systems. So let's talk about erections. And
can I leave that as an enticing cliffhanger and stop this little segment and come back? Okay, guys, wait to hear more about erections.